Chad Millman from the Action Network is with us here. And I was just, it's funny, I was just sitting here, and Josh, our producer, is a big MMA guy, and we were talking about Chuck Liddell, and then it hit me that because I looked up Liddell's book, that Chad Millman wrote that book on Chuck Liddell, which that's where I was like, well, how do I know that name outside of the Action, Action Network?
The single craziest, not safe for broadcast weekend of my entire life.
Liddell?
Yeah.
In a weekend?
A weekend. I didn't write the whole.
Were you hanging out with Brandon Lang?
Just the experience was the weekend. That was enough.
I honestly, I met him twice for the book. I met him, it was like 2 days after he lost to Rampage. I met him in a hotel suite in New York. He was with his fiance, and he was still bleeding from his ears. And we walked around the street, and he was getting stopped every 2 seconds. And about a month later, I went to visit him in California for 48 hours just to get some scene and spend time with him, because the entire thing we did over the phone.
Okay.
And I cannot even describe the experience, because it was full of more debauchery and inappropriate. Imagine what a UFC fighter lives like if you're Chuck Liddell at your peak and everybody wants a piece of you and you live exactly the way you want to live.
Similar to sort of maybe Mike Tyson's career when he was at
his peak.
I would think so. Or something like that, right?
That's how I live every day.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we knew that coming in. That's what Jimmy told us.
I just want to tell stories as good as Brandon Lang, and I figure if I start with that, then
Oh, your pizza came, by the way.
I appreciate that.
Well, first, the girl just walked up. She's got how many pizzas? I thought she was like, "Do you want
like
these
8
pizzas?"
pizzas.
And I'm like,
This is what the
bag, sure. And she was like, cheese or pepperoni, and I'm like, whatever. I thought she was literally putting all those pizza boxes down here. How many pizzas she got?
This is how low we are on the totem pole, is that people use our table to store stuff even when we're here.
Right. You guys don't mind, you're doing a show. Can I leave these pizzas here?
Right.
So, Chad, the Action Network, we are broadcasting in Atlantic City, which is, brand new to the gambling scene and the action. And, this kind of stuff, this kind of information is always very useful to our audience. So talk about some of the unique things that you guys are putting out there now and that is thriving because of, more than just Vegas being, hip to the scene.
Yeah. I mean, look, we were created entirely because we wanted to make people smarter about sports. I was at ESPN for a long time, and my feeling on ESPN was that sports fans just want to be the smartest people in the room. I don't care if they bet on sports or not. They want to know why the Patriots line opened with the Patriots as 1-point underdogs, and they're now 2.5-point favorites. What moved that number? Why is the market reacting like that? Who are the professionals betting on? And then they want to have the conversation. So the content we do, what we create on a day-to-day basis, is about how to make people smarter in that conversation. And it could be about, why do we think James White is going to have fewer than 6.5 receptions? It could be, why do we think Gladys Knight is not going to use a mic stand at plus 125?
Yep.
Or it could be, why did the line move and who are we on right now? But it's about sort of using the data, using analytics, using the expertise of the people who work in our business and our company to make people smarter about the games they're watching and give them an entirely different perspective.
I think you alluded to something that I've seen now for the casual sports fan that is looking at the legalization of sports gambling, whereas in the past you would look at a Super Bowl for a prop bet. Oh, James Harden points. But now the Super Bowl is always going to be the king of it. But your ability to mine data, and data isn't just turnovers, right?
It's analytics.
But think about the analytics. We're not talking about just analytics of a guy throwing a football or turning a basketball over. We're talking about how many times has Levine from Maroon 5, what shoes does he wear on the last 50 events that he's done?
Right.
What color are his shoes that the white can be the overwhelming favorite? Because you've mined all that data.
Let me tell you something, and I am actually proud of this. Over the weekend, on Sunday afternoon, I did research on Gladys Knight, okay? And I watched videos on YouTube of her performances for the last 30 years. And I saw only once did she have a mic stand when she was performing. And it was like a teeny half mic stand that she took the mic off the stand at the Kennedy Center Honors.
Wow, that's it?
Wow.
That was it.
All right, now there's another important prop bet.
Breaking down Gladys Knight's film.
Take that, Brandon
Tell
Lang.
you what.
Exactly. You don't get that from the Lang interview.
Yes.
No.
Now,
But hold on real quick, because there's another element of this that I'm sure you saw, and that's the prop bet of if a pip will actually show up. So I'm curious, in the hours and hours of video that you logged of Gladys doing shows, did you ever see a Pip just randomly show up?
Never.
That's right.
Once there was a group of backup singers, and she said, "You guys could be my Pips," but there was never a Pip.
See?
And I also think, look, you got to get that song right. You cannot denigrate the national anthem. There is no time to bring out Pips.
Mm-hmm. See,
no, I agree
now
with you.
that's we just took it third level.
Right.
Chad Millman gave us secondary information. That's tertiary right there.
No.
You don't find that anywhere.
Listen, you can go download the free Action Network app.
That's
it's
right.
free. You
I
can go
have
to actionnetwork.com.
Yeah, I was going to say,
That's
mine
right.
has the app.
I've had this, and I can show this to you, and I'll show it to Chad, too. I've had this for a couple of weeks. My record is 20-16-2, I believe, all
Wow,
time.
you are firing away.
Not bad, right?
So, you guys will appreciate this. So Paul LaDuca, who played in the majors for 10 years, was an all-star, right? He's an analyst for us. He gambles like crazy. I discovered him to be an analyst for us because I noticed he was writing things on Twitter about refs in the NBA having the over, right? And so he works for us. He made one of the value propositions of the Action Network app is you can track all your bets. So right, you can put in your bet, and then in real time you're getting alerts on the games you bet. You can see win probability during a game. It's like a live EKG because we have a line. If you're winning your bet, it's green. If you're losing your bet, it's red. And you can see the percentage chance you're going to win. LaDuca manually input 700 bets in the month of January.
700.
700.
You got a lot of catching up to do.
The other night we did a live podcast in New York, and LaDuca was yelling out, "Everybody take Coppin State -3 in this game. Juan Dixon is the coach. They're 3-15, but this is their spot."
Yeah,
exactly. He had Coppin State, and then he doubled down and took Howard to cover, and so we closed out this bar, and the last thing we're watching is Howard and whether or not they're going to win. We had him on ESPN 17.
That's good MEAC action right there.
It was good MEAC action.
And did they cover?
Howard covered, Coppin covered.
Wow. And Fang Mitchell used to be the coach at Coppin State a long, long time ago.
Well,
legendary coach.
That's out of my range there.
That's right.
This, by the way,
the Juan Dixon I knew.
This is the obsessive detail we bring in comedy to the Action Network.
It's second to none right now.
Right, I'm reading some of some of your tweets back, the things that you got, wondering if Stephen Gostkowski's first kick will be a touchback, stuff like that.
I'm on it.
That's what I'm saying. To find out, this guy, those kind of things that you can make some real money on these prop bets.
Yeah.
Here's the
Jimmy
one.
sent out that email. I actually had a prop bet that we discussed on the show. I never got you the email. I wanted to say, would there be a double doink in the Super Bowl? A doink doink.
That is a prop.
They call that a Cody.
Do they have that prop?
They do have a prop.
Yes.
That's called a parky.
See,
by the way.
you weren't the only one thinking that.
Yeah, but
somebody else invented
that
the
was
wheel
the one
as
that
well.
I wanted to turn in. I had it very early in the game, but
I thought it was a very good idea. These guys are against you.
how many times has that happened?
A double doink?
Yeah. How about the guy they signed?
Yeah, I can't
They
answer
brought
that.
the guy, they signed the guy in, and he has a history of the double doink.
The double doink.
Yeah,
They
they
actually-
signed this guy.
They tried to do that in Philadelphia, the Xfinity Live Center that's right next to Lincoln Financial,
Right.
where they have this makeshift real field, and then they put up the goalpost.
Yeah.
And they were giving out money to anybody who could double doink a kick. And, of course, you're lucky just
By
to,
the way, that is classic Philly.
That was-
because in Chicago they were giving out money to anyone who could kick a 43-yard field goal.
Right.
And I saw somebody
And
fall
nobody
flat
did.
on
Fall
his
flat
ass.
right, exactly. In Philly, it's you cannot do the worst thing that can possibly be done.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Prove it to me.
I need to ask you this question. How,
Nobody could double doink.
seriously, and I don't even think anybody
I
did.
double doink you.
Where do you go to pick up all the data before you put out odds or look at odds and are really confident in what color the Gatorade will be following? Because that's something that's been around for, I feel like that's one of the original props.
Ourselves.
This isn't a data thing. This is a research thing. Okay?
What's the difference?
Well, data is that's
Crunching
accessible
numbers.
to anybody, and you've got to know how to mine the information, right? Research is shoe leather reporting, finding your sources, talking to people. So we hired Darren Ravel, right?
Yes.
Darren Ravel is as locked in on useless minutia since Cliff Clavin. There has not been anybody.
I mean, just look at his Twitter feed.
Who was more interested in stuff nobody cares about, yet he is able to make us care about all of it. Right?
I've never heard anybody describe Darren Ravel as Cliff Clavin, and my goodness, if that doesn't hit it right on the nose.
But You know, if it didn't age me so much, I would use it more often around my office.
It's
where,
right.
like,
We all got it.
Everybody is like 25 years old,
right,
you know?
Right.
But so, like, A, he wrote a book about Gatorade. B, he knows that, like, and this is also we got from this guy, Jeff Schwartz, who played in the NFL for 8 years
right.
and is one of our analysts, right? So he has spoken to a lot of trainers, and Darren has done the same thing. A lot of times what's in that Gatorade tub is just water. Like, they don't use the Gatorade. And sometimes if they do use the Gatorade, they don't want to use any Gatorade that is a powder you have to mix. And a lot of the colors you have to mix, except for the orange and the yellow. The trainers don't want to take the time to mix the powder for all that.
So there's a much higher
Gatorade.
probability
So
of
a
being
higher
orange or
probability
yellow.
of being orange, yellow, or water.
How about that?
And water is on the board.
Yes, it is.
So Chad
I
Millman's
love
our
this,
guest.
man.
He's the Chief Content Officer for the Action Network. You're also the former editor-in-chief of ESPN.com and ESPN the magazine. So I got to get your take on this story that came out in Philly that's been getting all this attention about whether or not, you know, it was vetted enough and how it got through, this Carson Wentz story.
Oh, yeah.
From the PhillyVoice.com.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know,
He's not a good teammate.
right. You know, that's something that in your former job that you would probably have to be the guy that green lights that kind of
would
story,
be,
right?
yes.
I don't know how familiar you are with the story,
I
but
am very familiar with this story.
it has been getting a lot of action on both sides. That it's okay to run it, or they really shouldn't have ran this. They didn't do a good enough job.
Well, let me preface by saying I haven't read the story.
Okay.
Like, all I've seen are the reports, anonymous people saying that
I think
he's
it's
not
good
a
to
good
get your
teammate.
perspective on sourcing.
That's
and
what I was
who
going to go
gets
to.
the green
That
light.
I can talk
Okay.
about. So, like, I know there were anonymous people who said he was not a good teammate, and then very high-profile teammates, like guys who seemed, at least from an outsider's perspective, seemed to have a lot of credibility in the Eagles locker room and within the organization with fans who said, what are you talking about, he is? I heard that story, and I was shocked because you would thought this guy walked on water with the way people were sort of reacting to him his first couple of years in the league and the way teammates talked about him, and you sort of see him on the sidelines in ways that you don't often see other players, super engaged. The way Nick Foles, who seems like a real class act, is reacting to him, like they seem to be together and like working in sports like we all have for a long time. You look at that relationship between the first-string quarterback and the second-string quarterback to see what's really there. Like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, you could tell like that was hardcore personalities, right?
There was no
like these guys seem to like each other, so it's hard for me to imagine he's a guy that like a lot of people have animus towards. But at the end of the day, like if you're doing that story and if you trust the reporter and the reporter is comfortable with the sources, like a lot of times on stories like this, I would actually ask the reporter to give me the sources just so I'm aware.
Which is what happened.
That's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go.
We happened.
We talked to the editor.
The editor's my neighbor.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like,
But would you?
so
would
I would
you
not
yourself call those?
No.
the people?
No, because you trust the person.
trust the
that's-
reporter.
right.
But like there is
Because I've heard from the other side people saying, "Oh, the
Look,
fact checkers back in the
exactly.
day,
Well, here's the thing.
which don't exist anymore."
My first job out of college was a fact checker at Sports Illustrated. And so my first job was fact checking Peter King's column, or like having to check stories that, Rick Riley wrote, right? And so like literally having to ask Irving Fryer if he got stabbed by his wife in the hand
My
before the
goodness.
Super Bowl. And Irving Fryer said to me, like, this is a cover story. At this point, he's with the Dolphins. It's a cover story. And he's so mad that I'm asking him this question. He's like, I don't want this story in the magazine anymore. And I'm like, well, you can't do that anymore. Like,
You bought it. You can't return it.
we spent the time with you. I'm really just the last line of defense here. I'm 22 years old. I can't really take the story. And then by the end, like, it's all fine. He's like, so is it going to be on the cover or what? Like, it's like, so like, I know asking those fact-checking questions. At SI, when we were fact-checking, we always checked the quotes. At ESPN the magazine, we would try very hard to check the quotes, and we would ask the fact-checker to work with the writer to go over the quotes, either have it transcribed, listen to the audio, get to the source if we could actually get to the source. Look, fact-checking, for better or for worse, in this day and age of media, is a bit of a luxury.
Right.
And so
Right.
in a situation like that, it's not libelous, so you're not going to get sued for it. So at the end of the day, it's just judgment and trust. And like I personally, I would have run the story. Like, it's an incredible paper. I would imagine that the writer is someone that's been there a while. Like, they have a relationship.
He's
him
a
and the editor.
freelancer. Yeah.
Is it-
But he's been freelancing, and he also does like there's more than just I'm presenting something to an outlet. He was freelancing and consistently.
Sure.
So he has a professional relationship.
So, like, for me, like, I don't think it was wrong to publish the story.
Right. Let me ask you in this regard, I think the biggest problem that I had, the only problem I had with the story, and I get it, we're talkers, we're not writers, so there's an element of creating theater when you're writing, and print can jump off the page. I understand that. But this was a football story that turned into a misconception of a jerk story. Carson Wentz isn't walking around pushing people. Carson Wentz isn't telling them, get the hell out of my way, you don't know what you're doing. Carson Wentz is not giving the running backs the football in the run-pass option. Carson Wentz is throwing to one guy a little more than everybody. That's what selfish is. That's what not being a team player is. But when you're just reading it and you see selfish, not team, the immediate jump is he's a jerk, he's an a-hole, all these things. And I don't know, I ask you, Chad, is it on the writer or maybe the editor to check that at some point and say, listen, this is a football story, not a salacious story, or is it simply salacious sells?
Well, look, again, I haven't read the story, but I don't think.
Question.
I'm sorry, but I tried to give him some background.
I get what you're saying, and like, there have been plenty of times where we have worked on stories, and you have a story that is about one thing, right? But you end up getting this really juicy anecdote or quote, and I always called it like the besides moment.
Okay.
Because you've got a story that is 8,000 words on one thing, but it's the pull quote that everyone's going to remember, right?
Right.
And it's besides the point, but you want to get it in there because it's going to help raise the profile of the story. I have no idea what the thinking and philosophy was of the writer and the editor. I was not in the room.
Sure.
And I didn't read the story. So if it's not just about Carson Wentz and his personality, I just can't speak to that. But certainly editors and writers confront that all the time, and you make the choice in the moment. And, I tried to lean to keeping it in and finding a way to make it more about what it was. Well, that's interesting. If that's an element, maybe we need to have more context for that.
Got it.
And make it bigger.
Okay. It was just it was more generic.
I am amoral and generally a bad person, so I'm
you fit right in with us.
That's right.
Bunch of hoodlums.
No doubt.
Philadelphia. Do you expect anything less?
Double doink.
Come on.
So the Action Network, it's a free app, and it has all sorts of information, all sorts of crazy stuff. What are some of the things in this game that you like?
I like the Rams plus 2.5. I really like the Rams on the money line. You'll get a better value. If you bet the Rams minus 2.5, you got to, to get real technical, you got to pay minus 110. You basically got to pay a 10% commission. But if you bet the Rams on the money line, you might be playing plus 115. So you put $100 down, you win $115 instead of 110 to win 100. But I think the Rams, it's a close enough game where if you're going to bet the spread, you can bet the money line and probably, have a good chance to win your bet. So I like that. I think I like the over right now, but I like the over because I'm betting the line, not sort of the stats right now. If the line opened at 59, it's now at 56.5, and I think it's probably the lowest it's going to go. So
it's probably going to be 58.
Right, so you want to bet the best of the number if you like this in a certain spot. So I would bet the over in this game. You mentioned the Stephen Gostkowski prop, Stephen Gostkowski to have a touchback in his first kickoff is plus 180, or at least it was a couple days ago. I liked it then. He over-indexes for touchbacks anyways in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. You're also getting a place where people kick a lot of touchbacks. So you got a big leg, a guy who's going to be amped on his first kick.
That's some stats right there.
Whether it's the opening kickoff or it'll be his first kickoff after the Patriots score. So I'm looking for that. Those are some of the ones.
What about Gladys Knight omitting a word?
Not going to happen.
Okay.
Gladys Knight is a Hall of Famer.
She
does not miss a word in the national anthem.
It's up on the big board. I had to ask.
Then bet against it.
Okay.
Who put the line out last night of Ben Simmons attempting a three? Did you see that?
Yeah, that's preposterous.
100 to 1 last night. It was that
just
Ben,
in the game. In
just in the game.
Just that he would have attempted a three in the game last night.
He did against the Nuggets the other night, but that was at the end of the third quarter. Desperation.
Right.
That's the only time he's going to take a three. That's it.
But last year he had 11 such. This year he had none.
Right.
100 to 1. That's
it was
easy
100
money.
to 1 that he was going to attempt a three last night.
It is astonishing that a guy can be in the NBA at this day and age and never shoot anything but a mid-range jumper or layups.
We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and you know what the crazy part about it? It's not really hurting his game.
No.
I mean, he would be unstoppable.
It's hurting the Sixers.
Well, in the playoffs.
It's hurting the Sixers.
Oh, sorry, we're not going to talk.
How much better would he be? That's the thing.
He would be unstoppable.
All right, the James White number on receptions, is that now at 6.5?
6.5.
I saw it at 5.5 a day ago.
It's a good number.
I saw the number this
125.
morning at 6.5.
Okay.
So if it is at 6.5, even at 5.5, I would still bet the under. At Action Network, we're projecting it at 5. So we think there's a little bit more value at 5.5. I mean, at 6.5. But I do like that under.
Where are you guys based out of?
New York City.
Okay. I thought that it moved.
We have always been in New York City, but
Okay.
when I left ESPN and we started it, I literally left ESPN on a Friday and went to New York with a overnight bag and a real estate agent on a Monday. And my mother-in-law was like, "What the hell have you done?"
Do you let her know every time now, a reminder? Or?
Well, now, there was a story in the New York Times this morning about sports betting, and I was quoted in it. And I landed at 9 o'clock in the morning in Atlanta, and my wife texted me and said, "My mom just called and said you were quoted in the New York Times." I'm like, what kind of spies does she have? There's no way your mom is reading the sports section, all right? And so, and then as I'm walking out of the airport, I get a text from my mother-in-law. "I'm so excited to see you in the New York Times. I'm so proud of you. Thank you." And I'm like, of all the things I did at ESPN, this is what I'm getting a text about?
I remember watching Chad on Cowherd's show when he was back at ESPN on that Sunday show. They used to come on at like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning or something. And his 5-6 minute segment, whatever it was where the sharp money is versus the public money on several games, was the best part of the show.
That show was the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah.
Me and Colin and Tom Waddle were on the show.
Right, Waddle.
We're all still good friends. And it was like just a clubhouse for about 2 hours.
It's very casual.
Very casual. And credit to Colin, you guys know what it's like to set a scene and make people comfortable come on, and he couldn't be better at sort of bringing people into the tent.
That's huge. You're right.
Huge.
Especially on a big platform like that.
Yes.
It could be nerve-wracking.
And you could feel you could say anything and it's not going to frazzle him, and it makes the show feel more charismatic and more energetic,
more
because
real, too.
You can be exactly who you want to be and not worry that he's going to get angry about something.
That's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On a much smaller scale.
Chad Millman, the Chief Content Officer, the Action Network. Download the free app, actionnetwork.com/app, and pick out your favorite stuff. Get all the information and data analytics. Chad, it was a pleasure having you on, man.
Great to see you guys.
Thanks, Chad. Really.
Thank you.
By the way, I was quoted in the New York Post the other day about this Jeff Evans guy.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, did you hear about this?
No. What happened?
Sorry. Okay.
We're
making sure Jimmy doesn't cut us off now moving forward.
This is
Stop
great
getting
Jimmy
emails.
Shapiro, by the way. You
a
keep
guy
referring to him
on
as Jimmy.
social media.
I thought that you already introduced him.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A guy
I'm
on
not the
social
host.
media was going under this moniker of Jeff Evans, MLB. And in his bio, it said that he was an on-air contributor for our radio
Yeah, he was
station.
affiliated with 97.3 ESPN.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, sources tell me Bryce Harper will sign with the Phillies tomorrow. Middleton just needs to sign off on it. Well, it started with Machado will sign tomorrow. A week later, Harper and Machado.
Right.
Well, it got to the point that the Phillies called me. The team.
Seriously.
Because he's
And
the
was
program
I'm
director.
The program
too.
director. They called me and were like, we have a good working relationship, Mike. You're like, what's up with this guy? I'm like, he doesn't work here. I don't know him. So then the Philadelphia
That is
Inquirer
insane.
reaches out to me to get a quote, which the New York Post picks up. So I'm getting text messages like, you made the post. And I'm like, for what? They're like, some guy on Twitter. I'm like, are you kidding me?
You were like, oh, my God, I'm finally in page 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a little difference.
I've been trying so hard for all these years to get there.
But by the way, you know how hard it was to get Twitter to finally shut the guy down? It took me 3 weeks to finally get them to verify that I was who I said I was.
Right.
And then
That is insane that some guy was impersonating somebody working for you.
Yeah, and he had if you Google stock Philadelphia photos, the guy's picture came right up. He stole it right off of a website. And it was
It's a photographer's website, and that's
Yeah.
one of his stock photos up there.
and his
Wow.
cover photo was Citizens Bank Park.
Does anybody know who he is?
Yeah, he had 300 followers, and he created the website, the Twitter page in October.
No, but
to
does anybody
basically troll Phillies fans who were
he's using
dying.
he's using a fake name
Right.
and a fake headshot.
Right.
So does
And a
anybody
fake
know
bio.
who the guy is?
I have no idea. No,
You'd have to contact
This
the
all
FBI.
just
I think.
happened on Monday. I got the call from the Phillies on Monday.
So this is 48 hours.
It literally just ran in the paper on Tuesday's paper.
Can-
Yeah.
Jimmy does. Okay, hold on.
Hold on. Give
Let's give
Jimmy a
Jimmy
head.
a mic.
Here, Jimmy, here you go.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jimmy.
So
Hey, Jimmy.
New York Daily News called me yesterday, asking me if the odds for the Phillies signing Bryce Harper were taken off the board.
Because of this report?
Yes.
The guy Evans.
Okay, as somebody who is technically, we're with 97.3, but I don't have to deal with the crap that Mike Gill, the boss, has to deal with. So as somebody who is at least one level removed from this story, there's a part of me that thinks it's pretty funny. I have to be honest with you.
But the funny part is, this is the kicker, guys. Somebody created a fake account of the fake account. There was an MLB, but the L was a uppercase I.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
That's an immediate
Yeah,
tell.
that's like there's like a Woj bomb with
That's
like
right.
Woj spelled like
Yeah.
with an extra
So
letter
the
or
guy
an extra
was-
underscore.
It
or
was-
something
Adnan
like that.
Schefter, right? Something like that. There's that
was-
out there, too.
When I got an email from the Phillies the other day, like, you
Is that Greg Castriato?
no, it was, I can't even remember the guy. But I know, Greg.
Greg and my father worked together Greg's father and my father worked together
Yeah,
for
it was
25
not
years.
Greg. I can't remember the guy, but
That's
I got
awesome.
an email, and I'm like, it can't be about this guy, can it? And sure enough, that's what they wanted to talk about. And I was like, I don't know him. He never worked here. Like nothing.
Maybe you should hire him.
He's got
good info.
Hey,
So they took that off the board
can't-
because
no.
everybody was going up
There's
in
no
the
way they
No,
could've
it wasn't
done.
taken off the board.
No.
to say because
No, the odds makers are smarter than the newspaper people.
That's right.
Did you see there was a tweet from MLB The Show that said you're going to want to keep an eye on this account tomorrow. They never tweeted. You know that?
Yeah.
MLB The Show, the video game. You're going to want to keep an eye on this account tomorrow. Nothing. Radio silence.
follow Chad Millman on Twitter, too, at Chad Millman.
Okay.
Like I suggest you.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Well, you gave it to him. We
By
had
the way,
we had
best-selling
another mic
author.
here.
Best-selling
That's right.
author.
That's right.
Best-selling author.
The Baba Booey book, and on top of the Iceman Liddell.
And, by the way, for Philly fans, Invincible.
Oh, really?
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
I did.
How did I not know that?
I did. Went to Vince Papali's house like every week for like 3 months.
How the hell did we
Isn't-
not know that?
I don't know.
Can we start over?
Invincible.
Seriously. We could have
So-
talked less about that.
Yeah.
Also, my favorite sports team of all time, the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers.
Why?
I loved Dr. J.
Yeah.
I played basketball nonstop in Chicago growing up, and my nickname was Dr. C.
Is that right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
All right, we got
Because
soda
I
around
played
today.
just like Dr. J.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
was like
Took off from the
yeah.
foul
Well,
line.
where can we find that clip of Chad with the basketball under
Yeah,
the
the
hoop and then you
underneath,
come
yeah.
back on?
I used to practice that in my driveway non-stop.
With a Nerf hoop, though,
And I used to
right?
pretend I was Dave Zinkoff, and like in my driveway, the OPA announcer for the
Yes,
sports
of
team.
course.
Everybody
Well,
listening knows exactly what you
I
said.
would pretend but like imagine being like a short Jewish kid in the suburbs of Chicago in your driveway, and you're yelling like, "And now number 8, Mark Ivoroni," like in 1983.
Unbelievable.
That's how I got into doing this, by the way. I used to work at a sub shop like back when I was like 13, and I was the guy that like knew all the stats, and it was me and like a bunch of guys, men like throwing meat on the table, and we put up like stack the steaks up and put them in the freezer, and they'd be like, "Quick, do a radio call," and I just start making voices up of home run calls and everything, and then I decided, maybe I'm going to go this route.
Oh, so you
How
weren't
about
doing
that?
play-by-play of people stacking steaks.
no,
Exactly.
no, but
I got my start.
yeah, that's how I started.
Here
in the
comes a
back.
T-bone.
All right,
All right,
gentlemen.
now I'm sorry, we kept you a little
Well,
late.
this pizza's getting cold. I'm getting skinny as the pizza's sitting here. That's not happening, right?
Chad and Jimmy have more important stuff to do than hear
I'll see
about
you
our
boys
diet.
later.
Great
Thanks
stuff,
for
guys.
having me.
Millman, everybody.
It's awesome.
Action Network, actionnetwork.com. Download the app.